Hello, this is Mr. Maximus Film, and today I'm doing a really quick review of Pink Floyd's Obscured by Clouds, released in 1972, 1 year before Dark Side of the Moon, which will definitely be my next review. I'm really looking forward to review that. I'm going to probably do something special for it. Probably going to be very long, so prepare yourselves. But I just want to get this out of the way so I can do that some other time this weekend. So, Obscured by Clouds was released in 1972, the second soundtrack and the last that Pink Floyd ever did. Their first was, of course, More. You can check out my review of that. It wasn't so hot. It wasn't so positive. But this album, I think, is a lot better than More, which isn't saying much, but it is a much better soundtrack. It's the soundtrack to the film La Ville, by the same director as More, I believe. Nobody really knows about it. They're kind of both cult films. So, Pink Floyd was commissioned to do the soundtrack, and this was during the Dark Side of the Moon sessions. So there's a lot of parallels to the effects they're using here. I'll get into more in Dark Side of the Moon, but in this album, they particularly use synthesizers a lot. They got like the Synthia in there. They got a lot of stuff. And another really prominent thing that's similar to Dark Side of the Moon, really strikingly, is on Time, as probably most of you know, there's a very long intro with just this sort of droning synthesizer and the pendulum beats done by Roger Waters with his bass. And that same exact intro is used basically on Childhood's End, a track on this album. Which it's very similar. It's not as long. There's not a lot of as much production going into it, but very similar. So a lot of parallels because it was recorded in the same sessions. Only took 2 weeks to record, fairly fast. Feels that way. The songs are very conventional. They're all basically 3 minutes. And there's some experimentation, but a lot of them are very verse, chorus, sort of atmosphere. Starts out with 2 instrumentals, Obscured by Clouds and When You're In. Obscured by Clouds is a very atmospheric thing that has a synth drone, very much like the intro to Time. And then David Gilmour comes on with this very sleazy guitar solo, very distorted, very bluesy, and very sleazy, sort of slow guitar solo. Then it segs into When You're In, which is basically a repeating riff, sort of a upbeat sort of riff. It's kind of upbeat, but it's also very melancholic at the same time. It's kind of this dark, upbeat riff, if that makes any sense. It kind of goes on for a while. A lot of people say it goes on for too long. I think it's rather interesting. It's a nice riff to repeat for 2 minutes. For me, it's not particularly boring, but it's not particularly special either. Burning Bridges is another notable track, which is the track that comes next. Very good duet. Harmony vocals between Richard Wright and David Gilmour, which I've talked about before. Their voices are very similar, but they intertwine very well. Very well. The harmonies are perfect on that song. A nice slide guitar solo in the middle by David Gilmour. Very nice song. Burning Bridges is also reprised later in the album with Mudman. It has the same musical motif. Mudman, though, is an instrumental version of Burning Bridges with a little bit more prominent slide guitar from David Gilmour and a bit more atmospheric synthesizers going on there. So I talked about Childhood's End with the the reminiscent of Time beginning, even though this came before Time. I love the section that follows, the vocal section with David Gilmour. Some of his most philosophical lyrics. It's written by David Gilmour. It has very philosophical lyrics, actually kind of reminiscent of Roger Waters, what he would do later, and not something that David Gilmour is known for, is philosophical lyrics, really. But they're really good. They're really deep lyrics, talking about childhood's end, kind of the end of the world. It's based on a book that I have not read, the guitar is very good, kind of distorted, nice bluesy guitar that David Gilmour does a lot on this album. Other notable songs, Free 4, which is one of the first moments of Roger Waters talking about his father's death in World War II. Um, it's kind of a happy, upbeat song with really depressing lyrics. Uh, with this acoustic electric thing going on, and very happy, upbeat, Roger Waters singing cheerfully, but the lyrics do not match that whatsoever. Other songs, Gold, it's in the, Gold, it's in the, is the title. It's kind of an unfinished sort of thing. Weird titles on this album, like Gold, it's in the, What's, the Deal. Kind of weird titles for songs, but, Gold, it's in the, it's kind of a boogie rock sort of thing. It's a bit boring, it's a bit annoying for me. It's kind of an annoying song. Weird double-tracked vocals by David Gilmour. What's the Deal? An acoustic sort of song, very clean. The song, in my opinion, sounds very clean. Production, it's acoustic, but there's not a lot of grit to it. I think it would have been a lot better if there was some grit to it. More double-tracked vocals from David Gilmour. He does that very well. As you will see later, he does that fabulously on Dark Side of the Moon. And not to compare it to Dark Side of the Moon too much, but there is a lot of similarities. Absolutely Curtains at the end is another notable track in the fact that it's boring, just a synthesizer and a weird Indian chant at the end. So what do I think of this album? It's kind of a mixed bag. A lot of the songs are different. It has a very chilled, laid-back feel, like Burning Bridges and Stay are very chilled and laid-back, Richard Wright sort of songs. And you can see a lot of the sample. It's kind of a sampler album of what they would do on Dark Side of the Moon, just bits and pieces and samplings because it was recorded at the same time. I would give this album a 6 out of 10. Very strong, solid. I think that's what I gave Metal. Maybe a 7. It's very strong, but of course it doesn't have. It lacks substance in some areas, which is my problem. Some of the songs are not very interesting, like When You're In, Stay, Gold, It's in the. They're all kind of blah songs that are a bit annoying, sort of blah songs. So that's why it gets a 6 out of 10. Not a lot of substance in some places, but it's a nice sampler. So this is Mr. Maximus Film. This is a quick, short, one-take review of Obscured by Clouds, and I will see you guys later, definitely for Dark Side of the Moon. Maybe a 2-part review, maybe just one long video. So, the packaging. Wow, the packaging. Not much to say. Obscured by clouds, so it's a man that is obscured by this lens. Sort of the same motif at the back, little bubbles with the scenes from the movie and the track listing right there. Very papery sort of packaging. I'm not all impressed. It was probably the least impressive of all the ones in the Oh By The Way box set. Disc comes in the same plastic sleeve. Harvest, because Pink Floyd weren't doing custom labels like they would do on basically all their albums after this. So, yeah. Very cheap packaging. Sorry about the false ending. This is Mr. Maximus Film. This is Obscured by Clouds, and I will see you guys later.